What's good, everyone? Welcome back to the channel for another edition of my tipping, and today we'll be going through my round 10 AFL tips and predictions. We'll review round 9, and I had a score of 6 of 9, so I guess you just call it an average round. I was still in the bottom 57, which is a little bit of a shock. It was a poor first game on the Friday night, margin-wise particularly. I went the Cats by 24, the Tigers got up by 23. The Suns, I got them right pretty easily in that tip. But then the Swans, that was a bit of an upset. Losing to Fremantle, who could possibly be back on track this season. You never know. That's a good win. Port took account for North Melbourne easily. So did Melbourne and to Hawthorn. Brisbane beat Essendon easily. Now this one, I'm not putting my faith in Carlton ever again. I even said it against Brisbane. They keep robbing me of tips. I mean, seriously, Carlton, that was just terrible. And I had the gut of the Dogs the whole time, but I just went last minute to go Carlton. I'm glad I went the Crows to beat the Saints and Collingwood to beat the Giants. So, yeah, a bit of an average round for myself. 6 and 9 in tipping. Yeah, I don't know. Not too much to talk about. Hopefully next week it can be a little bit better. Now, of course, as we always do, we'll review the big calls for round 9. And things start off on the Friday night. And I went correct again. I said that the Tigers would lead at half-time. And that was correct. Then I went the Suns to score 10 second-half goals in the other game. And, yeah, I mean, they scored 10 or more first-half goals. But it was a poor second half, to be honest with you, for Gold Coast. The next big call was for Sydney to score 6 or more behinds in any quarter. The most they scored in a quarter was 3. Then I went for Horn Francis to have 100 plus fantasy points against North, and that definitely didn't happen. Then I went for Fritsch to kick 5 more goals against Hawthorn. He only kicked the 2, which is a little bit low. I also went against the other doggies that Mackay and Kerno would combine for 8 or more goals. And I reckon it'd be their lowest combined tally all season with just the bloody 2. And then in Brisbane v Essendon, I said that there'd be 200 or more points combined, and only 132 points were combined. So, yeah, the Saturday was absolutely horrendous for my big calls. Not a single one was even close. Sunday got a little bit better. I said that the Crows would lead by 30 or more at any stage of the game. Little did I know they'd get out to a 65-point lead. Only needing 1 more to get the 3. I said that the Giants would go goalless in any quarter, and I was close. But they scored 1 goal in the second and 1 goal in the last. So I ended up getting 2 of 9. And I know everyone's saying, oh, you don't get your punishments done. I see a couple of people saying in the comments, it's not that I don't want to do them. It's that it's a bit of an inconvenience. And it's not just going to get done straight away, you know, over the season. Even during the summer, if there are a few I need to do, I still probably will get them done. I got the dinosaur costume, though. That was one of my punishments to wear this at the footy game. So, at least I've got it on me. So, no real excuse not to get it done in the coming weeks. And, you know, there are a couple more that I need to do. That will be done. But I was pretty busy in Adelaide. Didn't really get the time to film any. So, yeah, you can get pissed off me if you want. I don't really care. But we will read what I have to do for this week, and I want to get this done next week. I've already organised a date and time to get it done before next tipping video, and that is from Geordie Pluto. That one got the most likes. It seems it's like the OG tipping videos. You always getting the most likes. 156 likes, and his punishment was to buy a stop sign from Bunnings. If you can buy a stop sign from, I don't know if you can, if that's illegal, and pretend to be the lollipop man at a set of lights for the next 5 turns of crossing the road. Anyways, we'll start with my tips for round 10. We'll go through them. It's actually probably going to be the toughest round of tipping so far this year. Could almost be the toughest round or the closest round all season, with a lot of these matchups that are going to be really difficult to predict. We start off on the Friday night between 2 top sides in the competition. Port Adelaide taking on Melbourne. Melbourne sitting second, Port sitting fourth. The Power, I reckon, at the moment are currently flying under the radar pretty nicely. They've had 6 wins in a row. Completely took account for North Melbourne by 70. I mean, look, I know it was North Melbourne, but still in Tassie to do that is still pretty impressive, and to record a score of I think 134, which they were able to do, especially after a bit of an even first quarter. Certainly impressive signs for Adelaide in terms of the fact that they just able to put on big scores. Melbourne as well took account for Hawthorn. Not as convincing as I might have assumed, but it was still 50 plus points regardless. But it was a little bit of a stalemate after half time. Now, this game is an interesting one because I could see it going a few ways. I could honestly see Melbourne, as they seem to do all the time, especially against Port. Port typically aren't great against the top sides, even at home. So I could easily see a day when Melbourne just win it by like 40 plus points and shock. I could also certainly see Port Adelaide winning. And yeah, definitely a difficult game to kickstart things off on the Friday. But I do want to give my faith a little bit in Port Adelaide. I know Melbourne probably look the better side on paper and probably might win it with their in-state record. But then again, Port Adelaide, they've got 6 on the trot. They're in with a lot of confidence at home. They'll bring in a crowd. And again, I don't think Melbourne's form has been the most convincing, even though they've been getting the wins. They haven't been as convincing as what they probably could be. So because of that, I'm actually going to put Adelaide. And a bit of an upset. It's honestly a bit of a 50-50 game when you really think about it. But my big call will be that both sides record 4 or more goals than behinds throughout the game. Next up on the Saturday, we've got the 5 games rather than the 6 like we did last week. North take on Sydney at Marvel Stadium. Now, this should be a pretty easy tip to go by. I know the Swans have been really disappointing. Like, you look at the two sides on the ladder, and only 2 spots separates the two sides, but it just doesn't feel like that's the case. I know Sydney have been ridiculously disappointing, only winning 1 of the last 7. And another game that they should have beaten. The Dockers, well, really on paper, you would think they would have bounced back. But I'm not really sure what happened. Callum Mills went out with an injury. I didn't get to watch the game, so I'm not exactly sure how the Swans lost the game. But it just, it didn't seem like their day in Freo after quarter time was the superior side. North, I watched a bit of this one in the first quarter. They were actually in the contest when I was watching. I thought they might have been up for the challenge and provided a good fight like they sometimes do in Tassie. It wasn't the case because after quarter time it was all Port Adelaide. They just kept stringing on goal after goal and losing by 70 at the end. North, pretty disappointing, but they have a bit of a sniff in this one. I feel like they could probably take advantage of Sydney's form at the moment, but Sydney just simply have to win this if they've got any chance at finals, which a lot of people still think they will make finals, and I know Sydney are capable of starting poorly and then finishing strong. I'll go Sydney. I don't think they're going to take too much control over the North in this one. I think it could be a relatively high scoring game, to be honest. I think North could actually put on a decent score. I'm going with Sydney to win this one, though, by 27 points. But, I will actually say that North Melbourne, as my big call, record their highest score of the season, which is 88 or more. We'll then travel to Ballarat, and I'm actually going to be travelling to Ballarat, so I'm looking forward to that, because I haven't been to Mars Stadium for an AFL game before. We got the Dogs taking on Adelaide at Mars Stadium. Now, this is going to be a really interesting contest. Two sides have been very impressive in the last month and a bit. Particularly, I'd say probably the Dogs, just given the fact they've got 4 on the trot. And whilst I say they haven't been overly convincing as a side yet, I don't think they've played the best opponents this season or actually taken enough scalps. I think they're going pretty well at the moment, the Dogs, and I think, they're certainly looking at finals. I think they should make finals, and if they win this game, then, they can almost eye the top 4 spot. I think the winner of this side, of this game, whilst I think both sides probably do make finals, the winner can eye a possible top 4 spot. We've got to talk about the Crows, though. How bloody good were they against the Saints? It was good footy to watch, but it was just because I was on the receiving end of things as a Saints fan and the Saints cheer squad. It wasn't very fun to watch, but yeah, Adelaide were just awesome. They moved the ball so freely. They just kept taking the game on through the corridor. So many plays they kept finding inside 50, which is shocking in defence. But Adelaide just got everything going right. They played a perfect game, to be honest, scoring 121 again against the Saints. It was really good from the Crows. But the reason why I think I might be leaning on the Dogs here, I think it's going to be a great game of footy. I think it's going to be probably close. But why I've got the Dogs is because they're a bit of a different breed at Mars. I think they normally get the job done there because they've got the home fans, obviously, and it's not. I just don't think Adelaide play that great away, and at these weird stadiums, especially Mars Stadium, I just feel like the Dogs win it, and they're going pretty well, the Dogs as well. So I think both sides deserve my tip, but the Dogs a little bit more, and I'm going to go the Dogs by 16. It should be a good game, though, and of course Adelaide can certainly win this game. A big goal for this game as well is that the Dogs record 5 or more consecutive goals in any stage of the game. Next up, we've got another fairly difficult game to predict, to be honest with you. Fremantle take on the Cats at Optus Stadium. Now, if you were giving me this fixture a week or two before, it would be an absolute no-brainer. But because the Dockers are actually tracking along a little bit better now, and the Cats, with their injury troubles, this could be a close game of footy than what some might be predicting. The Dockers, record an awesome win against the Swans on the weekend to keep their slim chances alive at finals. That was the first time they've beaten the Swans since 2011. And I didn't get to watch the game, but they just looked like they were playing with a more, free attacking style of gameplay. The fact that they scored over 100 points is really, it's a good sign for the Dockers, the fact that they were able to do that. And obviously Geelong on the weekend, I think that the talking point of that game was just how many people they had out. I think 10 injuries or 10 of their best 22 not playing. And I know the umpiring wasn't great, to be honest with you, but I don't think it would have made much of a difference. The Tigers definitely played a really good brand of footy and definitely deserved the win. The Cats will bounce back, though. I don't think that's too much of a concerning loss. I'm not sure how many players are going to get back. I haven't really checked on that yet, but I do want to quickly have a look at form. The Cats normally go pretty well against the Dockers. I know last year at GMHBA that wasn't the case. Normally at Optus Stadium, the Cats seem to go okay, so yeah, I'm going to go the Cats in this one. I think they're the more trustworthy side at the moment. I could certainly see Freo winning this, but I'm not sure if they're going to go 3 on the trot against a couple decent sides. So the Geelong will win it in a good contest. I'm going Geelong by 18. A big call. Jeremy Cameron needs to get the goals to get to 100. He kicks 6 or more. Next up, we've got the 2 Saturday games. First at the Gabba, the Q Clash. This will be a fairly interesting Q Clash. No one's at the Gabba. We've got Brisbane take on the Suns. And, Brisbane obviously tracking along awesomely. I think they've won now 6 on the trot or 7, whatever it is. They've just been accounting for all the sides that they've been up against. Essendon game was a bit of a grind for them, especially in the first half. Essendon actually looked the goods in the first half before the Lions just absolutely ran on top of the Bombers, and it was just a dominant second half for the Lions. Danaher as well, very impressive, scoring 6 goals in a game where we really didn't see much scoring. I thought there'd be a lot more scoring than what really occurred in that game. So the Lions were very impressive after half-time, recording a good 40-plus point win. And Gold Coast were also very impressive against West Coast, particularly in the second and last quarters, where they kicked, I think, a combined like 13 goals or whatever it was. A little bit patchy in the third quarter. That was a really boring quarter of footy to watch. And, the Eagles levelled with them in the first. But, yeah, the Suns recorded a very good win, their biggest win away from home. I wouldn't say a tough one. I think you should go the Lions. But I could see a day where the Suns upset, or at least fight. And I think they will fight. They've had a good month and a bit of footy, the Suns. But yeah, I think the only logical tip in this one is the Lions, when it's at the Gabba especially. So the Lions win it by 20. But big call though, the Suns record more inside 50 than Brisbane throughout the game. Next up, we've got another game which is going to be an interesting one. Another very close game of footy, I reckon. This could be the game of the round. It's obviously the dream time of the G clash. Essendon v Richmond. I could be going to this. I said I wasn't going to go, given I've got to go to Sydney on the Sunday. But, if all things go considered and then I come back from the Ballarat game unscathed, I might be attending this game possibly. I might be doing a little bit of a 2-in-1 vlog. If you want to see that, let me know. But yeah, this game is going to be very, very difficult to predict, to be honest. Richmond seem to possibly be back with 2 wins on the trot, a really good win against the Cats. I think that was their best game of the season. They played really, really well. They almost played their perfect game. So he seems to possibly be back now, Dusty, which is certainly very pivotal for the Tigers' chance to make finals still possible this season. Essendon, they still could make finals, but their season's slipping away pretty quickly now. I know their last 4 have been against really tough opponents, but I'm not going to say this one's any easier. I mean, it probably is a little bit easier. The Tigers have been pretty disappointed this season, but there seems to be a time where the Tigers just sort of click into gear and then just sort of get back on track, which could be this moment of the season. Obviously with Essendon, disappointing second half against the Lions, but it goes to show that I still think they're capable of matching it with the best. Richmond aren't the best at the moment. I think Essendon, they get a good win. I think they actually get a good game of footy going their way. Finally get back on the winners list. I don't think this will be a bad contest at all. Richmond will be up for the challenge, but we're going Essendon in this game by 22 points in it. Maybe a bit of an upset. A big call though, the Bombers start really hot. They score 5 of the first 7 goals at the MCG. So we're going to go the Bombers in this one. I know they haven't beaten Richmond in like their last 13 instances, but that has to end eventually, and I think it'll end against the Tigers this time round. 3 games on the Sunday. We've got Hawthorn taking on West Coast at Utah. Now, it's not often where a side on the bottom of the ladder are the heavy favourites, but bloody hell, they're $1.28 to win this game, which is, I know, against West Coast, but still quite shocking. A game, obviously, though, at Utah, so they are certainly the heavy favourites for a reason. As expected, both sides lost pretty heavily. Hawthorn, to be honest with you, they weren't like as bad as I thought they were going to be, particularly after half-time, but they were pretty tragic in the first half, particularly with the way they moved the ball. They just could not get into their forward 50. Every time they tried to, move the ball forward, they just pinpoint a Melbourne player, as easy as it bloody looked. So I don't know why that was the case for Hawthorn, but they got things going in the second half of the game. And West Coast, well, they look like they're in the rabbles at the moment. I don't even know what the hell they're going to do now. This is what people call in the Harley Reid Cup, the spoon bowl. It really is. Whoever loses this game probably finishes last this season on the ladder. I think Hawthorn right now are the better side and should win this game, but at the same time, I almost feel like they would almost rather lose just so they can finish last to get Harley Reid. But I think this will be a close game regardless. So both sides very bottom end of the ladder. I see an upset brewing. I really see an upset brewing where West Coast can win. I haven't tipped them yet this season. I just feel like you've got to at least tip every single side at least once this season. The Eagles are getting my tip here for no other reason than that just I feel like an upset could happen. And we all thought North were going to beat Hawthorn round 3. Hawthorn won. I feel like this could be a similar game of footy, but I think it'll be close. Hawthorn choke another close game. West Coast win it by 2. Oscar Allen, my big call, records 3 or more second half goals. Next up at the MCG, we've got Carlton and Collingwood. This is going to be a good game. Well, it should be a good game. But to be honest with you, with all the other fixtures, this could be the more one-sided matchup of the round, which is really crazy to think about, given where these two sides were at last year. The Blues, another disappointing outing on the weekend. They just don't know how to play their brand. It seems to be that they only play well when they're behind, caught lacking, and they got to get back in the game. Otherwise, it seems that they can't start off the game on their terms And there's just some problems now really looming, especially in the forward line with Harry Mackay and Charlie Curnow. I don't know if they can be both together in the same forward line, because every time they seem to go inside 50, nothing works. Mackay, another useless game, not even scoring a single goal. Curnow wasn't, I guess, a little bit of a presence, but should have really done better. I mean, I just don't know what's up with the Blues at the moment. They only scored 10 points in that first half. And I know they came back, almost won the game, but then the Dogs overran them. They're looking pretty poor at the moment. Carlton sitting 9th, and they have a really difficult month ahead of them. And I just don't see any reason for me to back them in against a Collingwood side that is looking as hot as they've ever been. First on the ladder, 8-1, accounted for the Giants in pretty easy ways, to be honest with you. Winning that one was 60+. I thought the Giants would be a little bit better. Collingwood are looking really good. They look in the goods. I guess, given the fact that Carlton are playing Collingwood, it could be close, and closer than what I might imagine. But you just got to go Collingwood. I'm not trusting Carlton until they prove to me that they can actually play a good brand of foot. Even if they lose, if they can at least challenge all 4 quarters against Collingwood, maybe I'll tip them the week after. But I'm going to go Collingwood to win it by 34 points. The biggest, I think, win of the round, to be honest with you. My big call. The Pies' highest lead is 48 or more points at any stage of the game. And the last game of the round, I'll be at this one to try and get to every game, St Kilda game this season. We've got GWS taking on the Saints at Giant Stadium, Sunday 4:40. A very interesting clash, because this is not as, I guess, maybe one-sided as it might have been a few weeks ago. This is certainly almost a 50-50 now. You would lean a little bit more onto the Saints, though, but maybe not after what we saw last week. That was really, really disappointing from both sides, to be honest, on the Mother's Day. Yeah, but Adelaide, I mean, look, they were awesome. They played brilliantly, but St Kilda were also really sloppy, really slow with the way they moved the ball. They just, they weren't free-flowing. And then when we went inside 50, Adelaide would just, they just defended way too easily. It just wasn't a good game. We kept slipping tackles, the Saints. It was just really poor, defensively poor. So many things were poor. But I'm not going to write us off after just the one game. And Adelaide are really good at home. I think that could just be that one game, and we have a bad game. And we got to win this game, to be honest with you. We've got to go 8-3 into the bye with our next 2, Giants and Hawthorn. The Giants at the moment, well, I thought they were going okay this season until last week, to be honest. That was really disappointing. 64-point loss. I know it's against Collingwood at home, but they didn't really look like it. They didn't really look like they had anything to really provide or give in that game. They didn't show much at all. So I think both sides are going to want to respond in this one. I think the Giants are certainly capable of winning, but the Saints just need to win. We've got a good form guide against the Giants as of late. I think we've won our last 3. Yeah, I think we should win this game. And I think Max King is going to be back. We'll get a few things going our way. Our forward line should be a little bit more functional. Memory might be out, actually, with concussion. But regardless, I'm going to go the Saints in this one. But I could certainly see the Giants winning it. But I hope they don't. I think we'll bounce back in Sydney, away from home. It'll be tough, but I'm going Saints by 16. And my big call is actually for us to lead for 80% or more of the game. I just feel like this is one of those games where we start well and we just hold that lead, but we don't hold a massive lead and only win it by a few goals. So, yeah, those are my tips. It's going to be difficult. Like, I'm not expecting to get a high score given how many 50-50 games there are. Like, I'll be honest, I'll say this earlier. If I get 6 or 7 or more, I'll take it for sure. 4, but I'm going to put Adelaide to win it by 12. The Swans over North. The Dogs over Adelaide. The Cats over the Dockers. The Lions over the Suns, the Bombers over the Tigers, the Eagles over the Hawks, a couple upsets there, the Pies over the Blues, and then the Saints over the Giants. So, yeah, let me know down below what you guys thought of my tips and what your tips are for this round. This is one of those rounds where I always ask you for my tips, right, every tipping video, but this is one where I really want to see what you guys have to say, because it's going to be a really difficult round to tip. All right, let's go through my tipping competition. I actually might do a prize at the midway point of the season. So whatever person's leading after round 12, I will give away maybe $100 or something like that. We have a look at the round 9 tips to see who actually possibly got 9. No one. Alrighty, well that's a bit of a shock, to be honest. I thought there'd be at least 1 or 2 that got 9. Not a single person got 9, but Isaac sucks at tipping. The first 8 weeks shows that he does suck, but then he goes bloody bang, scoring 8s with a margin of nothing. Clearly doesn't suck at tipping if he's doing that. And then the total score, this is sort of where it means a little bit more, because, as I said before, a prize will be given away to those whoever's on top after the end of the round 12. We've got Jettles the Goat on 62, Josh Morgan, Jack Biddy, and we've got Nick D on 61, Jennifer, Studi, Christian, Jason's Raiders, Lincoln Walk, Jay the God, Ice Tray, Get It On Your Team, and Pasindu, all with 61. Join the tipping comp. Leave a punishment, subscribe if you haven't already, leave a like, because this week's going to be a big week of content. The tips out today, obviously, ranking Indigenous Guernseys, an AFL 23 video. that vlog I might actually do, and a footy card video. They're all on the agenda for this week. So hit the like button, leave a sub. Let's try and get 1,000 again possibly. And we'll see you very soon in my next video.